everybody. Welcome to the Kimberly Cloud Show. I'm your host, Kimberly Cloud. I have a very special guest here for the show today. Can you go ahead and announce to the world who you are and where you're calling from?
Sure, I'm Andy Semotiuk, and I'm calling from Toronto, Canada.
Okay. What is the temperature in Toronto?
It's hot. It's hot. Maybe not quite as hot as down in the States, but it's coming up to about 100. We're
Wow.
melting over here.
Is that North Canada, Central Canada,
Uh, It's,
or Southern?
it's on the it's central Canada, but it's above New York, for example, roughly.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And could we talk about your past leading up into your present, what you do now, and just start with your past?
Sure. I was born and raised in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. That's a very cold city up in the northern part of western part of Canada, and largely raised there, and also in part in the United States. Half my life has been in the United States, half in Canada. I moved to the U.S. because my mother's sister Helen lived in Los Angeles, and so she sent me down, and I went to high school in Los Angeles. And later in life, I practiced law in Los Angeles for 10 years, and then later in New York for 5 years. So I've
How
been.
was the school system in the high school system in LA,
How
if
was
you don't
it?
mind? Yeah.
I liked it a lot. I went to Potter Noster High School, which was a all boys high school, and it was run by a bunch of Catholic monks, priests, and they kept a tight rope on us guys. So I liked it a lot. I thought the training was great. One thing I liked in particular is public speaking. They were very good at
You're a part of Toastmasters, right?
Yes, I
I
am.
need to
Yeah.
get back into there. Oh
Oh,
my
yeah.
God.
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I
So,
spent 35 years going to club meetings every week to club meetings at Toastmasters to learn how to
okay.
speak better and also to get feedback on how to be a better leader.
Tell me, before we get off the subject, I just have to tell the people, about Toastmasters. Tell me what Toastmasters mean to you.
Okay. Uh, Toastmasters is an international organization. I think there's 130,000 Toastmasters worldwide. They're in
Mhm.
clubs in something like 16,000 cities throughout the world. It's an organization dedicated to teaching people how to be better leaders and how to be better speakers. And so, as I mentioned, I was a member for many years. I became a distinguished Toastmaster. You'll see over my shoulder here a plaque that's for getting to the best that you can be in Toastmasters. Only about 1% of all Toastmasters get to be distinguished Toastmasters. It took me 35 years. Some can get it in 6 months, but I was on the slow train.
Okay, and tell me about the JD, the actual lawyer degree that you got.
Okay.
What schools did you go to for that?
Okay. I got my law degree in Vancouver, in University of British Columbia in Vancouver, Canada. But I became a member of the bar, several bars throughout the United States and Canada. So New York and California in the United States, and Ontario and British Columbia in Canada. And so I'm eligible to practice in both jurisdictions. And I'm now in Toronto, where I've been for just since the beginning of COVID. Luckily, somehow, I consolidated everything in Toronto, where I practice both U.S. and Canadian immigration law.
How many clients have you gotten from practicing law and immigration?
I've helped over 10,000 clients with various legal problems, both in the U.S. and in Canada. And I also write for Forbes. I write an immigration column for Forbes. I've been writing for them for about 10 years now.
Yeah, I was talking about that. Forbes, you have to have a steady income coming in. They ask you about your income when you're verifying the process. And yeah, I wanted to be a Forbes contributor, but they
Well,
kind of like I have to wait. But so the
it's a great place to work. It's a place
Yes.
to write articles.
So your law degree, you're in immigration. Tell me about the broad spectrum of what you do
Sure.
as an immigration lawyer.
I just want to mention, Kimberly, I see all those degrees behind you on the wall there, so you're no slouch either. Uh, um, and by the way, I looked at your background. You're very impressive. You've got a very impressive background,
Thank you, sir.
MBA and so on. What do? I help clients improve their lives through immigration. That's what I do. Um, Basically, people don't know that there's a category of people who work in immigration, like there are, for example, you have a sore tooth, to go to a dentist. Let's say you got a sore knee, you have to go to a Medi Center. But people don't know if you have an immigration problem, there's a special group of people who do that, and that's immigration attorneys or lawyers. I'm one of those people. So what do? We help people improve their lives through immigration, and there are 5 ways to do so. So, for example, if you want to immigrate to Canada or the United States, here are the 5 basic ways that you can immigrate. Number 1, you can study your way in. So, for example, go to college or university or trade school or whatever, and then go through that process and ultimately get permanent residence. Number 2, you can marry your way in or have a family member that will sponsor you to stay in the country where you want to go. So, for example, you marry a US girl, and the US girl, in my case, for example, if I married a US girl, I could be sponsored by that girl to stay in the US. The third way is to work your way in. So, for example, if you're working as an engineer or an architect or whatever, and someone offers you a job to work, for example, in the United States, if you're from Canada, there's a free trade agreement between the 2 countries that enables you to go and work in the US. And working through that process, you can get permanent residence ultimately, not through the TN that you get, but through a combination of other things. But you can end up staying permanently. So I've covered 3. There's 2 more. One is claiming asylum. If you're fleeing persecution from the country where you were a citizen. So, for example, Ukraine, right at the moment, there's a war going on there.
Mhm.
Russia's attacking Ukraine. If you're Ukrainian, potentially you could claim asylum. And finally, you can invest your way in. If you got a lot of money, you can invest. And there's a program, for example, EB-5, that enables you to get a permanent residence in the US if you invest your way in. So
Now,
those are the ways.
are any of these programs going to change in the future? Like,
Yes.
what
Yes, they
what is
will
going to
change.
change? I'm glad you're bringing
Oh,
that up.
well, a lot's going to change. For example, President Trump has indicated the Working Your Way In program, the H-1B visa, which is the workhorse of that area, is being changed. And I just wrote an article on Forbes just
Tell me about
yesterday.
it. Tell me about it, dude.
Well, the challenge is, he's trying to move the H-1B program from a sort of a basically a lottery. You got to win a lottery to get an L1 H-1B visa, because there's so many who want it and so few that are made available, work visas that are made available every year. So he's trying to move it from a lottery system to a merit-based, but also money-based system. So if someone wants to hire someone abroad and is prepared to pay a much higher salary than normal, then that person could sponsor someone from abroad to come. And my article was talking about that there could be another way, better ways of doing the H-1B visa in a way that would be more useful for people. For example, they have this, 65,000 limit on the number of visas per year, and 20,000 for a master's degree, so 85,000 a year. Why have a limit like that as one example of what could be done? And to try and reorganize the program to make it quicker, more fairer, and just basically make it work. The details are in the article, so you have to go to Forbes, look up my name, Andy Semotiuk, Forbes, and you'll find my article. My name is spelled Semotiuk, by the way, Semotiuk.
Can you tell me about the last name, your last name, and
Sure,
what it represents?
sure. I was born and raised in Canada, but I'm Ukrainian in background. That's a Ukrainian name. So my folks came from Ukraine, but they came after, my mother came after World War II, my father before World War II. But it's the same story repeating itself all the time. We've got new people coming from Ukraine because of the war with Russia. And sadly, it's a struggle, and Ukraine is doing its best. A lot of people dying. Over a million people, over a million soldiers and Russians have either died or been injured in this war. Over a million.
Sad.
Yeah. But that's because Russia's invading Ukraine.
Let me show you a couple of questions that
Sure.
came up. What do you think about Russia?
Well, the problem is Russia's an imperial state. It's a conglomerate colonial, based state that's had its day and now needs to be dissolved, sort of like Africa was once. They were under colonial rule from England and Germany and France and so on. It's a state. Putin is he's a psychopath, someone who has no sympathy for people. Physiologically, he's missing the empathy criteria in his cells to be able to empathize with people, and he's on this megalomaniac trip of trying to absorb Ukraine and then move on to build the Russian Empire in Europe and so on. So,
And we all know once he get Ukraine, if he succeeds fully, he's going to want to get more territory, you
absolutely.
know.
And Ukraine is fighting blood and guts. The West is supporting Ukraine with money and arms. And it's a war. It's not just Ukraine versus Russia. This is our war. Our war because Ukraine is standing up for principles like freedom, sovereignty, independence, human rights, etc. And if Ukraine falls, NATO will be next. And, there are projections that there could be as many as 20 million people fleeing from Ukraine were Putin to succeed. Now you can imagine how Europe would be flooded with people, and how would they deal with that, and what would result there. And if NATO is teetering, you can imagine what America will go through. So I'll share one other insight about you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. In 1994, when the Soviet Union fell apart,
Mm-hmm.
most of us, we don't know the history that well, but let me share
Me
this.
neither.
The Soviet Union, which was basically run by Russia, fell
Mhm.
apart in 1991 because it was basically a prison of people, of nations. And when it fell apart, Ukraine became an independent state. And it ended up with the third largest nuclear arsenal in the world at that moment. And in 1994, President Clinton flew over to Budapest with leaders from the UK and Russia and France and China, and they negotiated a deal that was called the Budapest Memorandum. And it said, Ukraine, if you give up your third largest nuclear arsenal to Russia, we will guarantee your sovereignty and independence. And the Ukrainian leadership said, okay, we'll give up our nuclear arms in exchange for this. So they gave them up. But Russia, instead of honoring that agreement, today has soldiers on the ground in Ukraine trying to invade. And the United States has a duty, has promised to help Ukraine protect its sovereignty. And that's why we need to protect it.
How well do you know your history? Because I watched a clip from Tucker Carlson, that says that this is beyond the Soviet Union. This is like 700 years back. He did an interview with Putin,
Yes.
and Putin was like, this is like 800 years ago that they owe land to him. And my next question, that's my question. And do you think Trump is doing a good job with trying to bring the war to a close?
Thanks for asking these questions. That interview with Tucker Carlson's the one who doesn't know his history and was unable to argue with Putin. Whatever Putin said,
Yeah, yeah.
Carlton, Tucker. So, okay, well, that's the way it is. Historically, Russia has very little claim to Ukraine. Indeed, Ukraine existed long before Russia came on the scene. In the 1200s, Russia was, like Ukraine was around. Ukraine accepted Christianity in 1998. Its leaders, Vladimir, accepted Christianity in 1998. Moscow didn't appear till the 1200s. It's Ukraine that's historically the power. If anything, excuse me,
Hmm.
Ukraine has more pretense to Russia to rule Russia than Russia to rule Ukraine. Uh, to draw a simple analogy that anybody can understand, let's say you're sitting in your home. One day, someone knocks at your door, enters in, and he says, I'm taking over here. You say, wait a minute, this is my house. He says, no, I'm taking over here. What right do you have to take over my house? Well, long ago, an uncle of mine came from this part. Well, what are you talking about? It's my house now. It's long ago, some uncle. That's the basic claim that Putin's putting forward. You know, not so that's that. And as far as what was the second question? I forgot this.
Do you think Trump is doing a good job?
I mentioned already, I think Trump is a psychopath, meaning
Okay.
someone who does not have the capacity to be empathetic
Okay.
and is interested in one thing himself. And he wants to be rich. There are two things he wants: money and the Nobel Prize. That's what his life is all about: money and the Nobel Prize.
For those who don't know, I know what the Nobel Prize is, but for those who don't know, what is a Nobel Prize?
A Nobel Prize is a very prestigious award that's granted to someone who's made peace in the world, who's
Oh,
accomplished some very humanitarian, valuable thing in the world. So, for example, Barack Obama won a Nobel Prize for becoming the first African American to become president of the United States. There were Malala, I forget her name, but the girl from India who from Pakistan, who fought off Muslim terrorists who injured her threw acid on her face and so on, and who fought them off and is today a spokesperson for women, girls, and getting an education for women to be educated, is someone who won a Nobel Prize. People like that. There are many Nobel Prize winners, but President Trump would like a Nobel Prize, and he could get one if he supported Ukraine and defeated and enabled Ukraine to defeat Russia in the war there, or if he were able to solve the problem of Gaza and the thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people who are starving there.
do
But
you think he's gonna build the? I'm sorry for cutting you off. Do you think he's gonna help rebuild the Strip, the Gaza Strip? Do you think that that's worth it?
that's what he said he wants to do. But consider it from the point of view of a Palestinian who lives in Gaza.
Hmm.
He's saying, I want to take over your house and I'm going to build a hotel where you live. Well, what about me? What's going to happen to me? This is my land. This is my home. Where do I go? Doesn't make sense. to that, from that point of view. Um,
Tell me one story where a illegal immigrant was coming in, or an immigrant was coming in to seek either to study, marry, or sponsor work, claiming asylum, or invest. Tell me the situation where they came in and it was very difficult to not work with them as in personality wise, but their situation was almost so bad that you may not have been able to get them into the United States or Canada.
okay. Uh, well, let's share some that have been in the news recently. Now, these may not be my clients, but I think they're worthy of discussion.
Okay.
So, for example, one guy, I mean, there's several, but one guy was a student at Columbia University,
Hmm.
and he was leading a protest related to the Gaza, difficult the invasion, the Israeli invasion of Gaza, where the Israeli army was invading. Gaza is a strip of Palestinian land uh, in Israel on the coast, Mediterranean coast in Israel.
Is it kind of like DC and Maryland put together?
Yeah, yeah, it's very
Okay.
small. It's very small.
Okay.
If, I think it's, I don't know the exact size, but it's a strip of land on the coast of the Mediterranean next to what is Jewish land in the state of Israel. And so one student in Colombia was protesting American policy with respect to, what was going on in Gaza. And he was arrested and was in the process of being deported. He's still fighting for his rights to be in the United States. Now he's married, he's got a child in the United States and so on. And it's going through the courts to decide whether the arrest and how he was handled was proper. That's an example of a case that was difficult. Another one is a guy who was legally in the U.S. was scooped up and deported to El Salvador.
Salvador.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
and he's there, and it's been agony trying to get this guy back into the United States because he was legally in the United States, but they finally got him back through the courts, going through the court system and so on. In my own case, in terms of clients who have been difficult, the EB5 investor program involves, if you will invest $800,000 for a period of 5 years, you will
That's like 5 million, right? Almost.
800,000
But it's a year for 5 years. That's
for,
like
oh, no,
500.
no, one investment of 800,000
Okay.
for 5 years, and then you're supposed to get your money back. You
Oh.
can get permanent residence if you created 10 jobs. And so there are these regional programs where people say, okay, come on, invest with us and you'll get permanent residence. So I have one case where someone did that from Canada. And what should have been a couple of years to get the green card has taken over 5 years. And he's only now, just now, going to be interviewed in Montreal to get his green card, although he invested the $800,000 5 years ago.
So
And
it need to be quicker, like you said.
well, yeah, it should be like a year, 2 years, or whatever.
Did
But this
Trump
guy's
talk about anything about it being quicker and moving it up?
Trump is not. He's not on the warpath about the EB5 program. He's more on the warpath of trying to deport 11 million undocumented immigrants in the United States. That's what he's trying to do. So anybody who came in and overstayed their visa, anybody who came and came in across the border without proper paperwork, these type of people, If they're in the U.S. and they don't have proper paperwork to be here, his idea is we're going to deport all these 11 million people to wherever they came from. And there's a large constituency of Americans who support that. They want to get people out if they don't have paperwork. But of the 11 million who are out there without paperwork, only about, let's say, 1.5 million or 2 million are criminals and who deserve to be deported. And probably everybody would agree they should be deported. There's no problem deporting such people from the United States, people who beat people up, murderers, rapists, these type of people. But as for the rest, the 9 million others, most of them have been in the US for longer than 10 years. A vast majority have been in the US for longer than 10 years. And they've been working and attending church or whatever they do, on weekends and in community clubs and associations and so on, and trying to make a life out of living in the U.S. And these people are, targeted now to be removed out of the U.S. And the problem is they're building. It's not that easy to just put someone on an airplane, send them back home. For each person you're trying to do that, you have to get the consent of the country where he's going back to send the guy back to. Many countries don't want to give consent, not because they're criminals, but just they don't want to cooperate with the United States. China, for example, might be such a country. There's a whole, Venezuela is another such country, and so on, or was. I don't know if it's still is. So I know about this because a friend of mine used to be the head guy deporting people from Canada all over the world. And he had to put them on airplanes and fly them to wherever they came.
Can I ask you one quick question under 1 minute, and then we're going to talk about where you're going in the future?
Sure.
What is the process like if you want to go to Canada to visit? What is the process of going to Canada to visit? Because I went and I wasn't going to visit. I was seeking refuge, and they kind of like turned me around, and I was homeless at the time. So I don't know what was going on with that, but I just want to know what is the legal process of visiting Canada, so I know for future reference.
No problem. If you're an American citizen, you have a passport, you can come to Canada right at the border and ask, I'd like to come up for 2 weeks, say, or whatever time period, for a visit. And normally, if you're, see, what are they concerned about at the border when they're talking to you? Okay. Number one, are you a terrorist? Are you going to blow up the country? Number two, okay, you're not a terrorist. Number two, are you a criminal? Are you going to bring in cocaine and, like do criminal things, shoot people? No, you're not a criminal. Number three, are you saying you're coming to Canada as a visitor, but really you're coming to Canada to stay permanently? That's a concern. And number four is, are you saying you're coming to Canada as a visitor, but you're really coming to Canada to work illegally? Those are the two big ones for normal people like you and me. So in those instances, they will ask questions like, well, are you working now? Where do you work? What do you do? Where do you live? And what they're asking about is, do you have roots in America that are strong enough to guarantee from their point of view that if they allow you to come for a visit for up to 6 months, by the way, that you will return at the period of your authorized stay to go back to work or go back to live or live off your bank account if you've got a lot of money, or with your family because you got a lot of family, or because your dog wants you back, or whatever, the indicators that there's a strong tie that likely means you will go back to Canada. And in your case, probably if you were unemployed back then.
I was.
Yeah, that was the reason why probably they said, well, we don't think this lady's going to go back, or she may not go back. And so, You have to wait 6 months, then you can come.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't have a passport, so that probably was well, most likely was the reason.
Oh yeah, passport. Yeah.
Where do you see yourself going in the future?
I'm writing a lot. For example, I've written a few books. They're all on Amazon.
Good. What
Uh,
is one of them called?
well, one that might be of interest to your listeners is a book called The Young Professional, which
Yeah,
is
I read about what you. Yeah, tell me about it. Tell me about it.
so it's a real world survival guide for the new college graduate, is what it's called on the cover. But it's a book about, how to. There's three themes: money, time, and balance. I talk about those three things in the book. Almost everyone has a problem with either one, two, or three of those topics. How to get more money, how to get more time, how to be balanced in your life. So I talk about it in that book. And in terms of what I'm looking for in the future, I'm planning to right now I'm working on a sort of a autobiography, I guess you'd call it. I want to write about my life and what I learned in the course of my life.
Okay, and how can the people reach you?
I work at Pace Law Firm, PACE Law Firm. You can Google pacelawfirm.com and you'll find me, Andy Semotiuk.
Okay, do you have anything that maybe you didn't explain that you want to explain? If not, it's still okay.
I had a wonderful time with you, Kimberly.
Thank
And I
you.
want to express my appreciation for having me on your program and wish you all the best and all your listeners the best as well.
Okay, hold on for a second. Thank you guys so much for joining my show. You all take care, be safe, stay on the line, Mr. Andy, and I will see you guys later. Bye.
Never waste my time.